Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Noggin Notes. I am Jake Wiskerson. I am the host of this particular show, but we do have two other shows if you want to check those out. Noggin Notes Africa and Noggin Notes Cambodia. I don't host those. Their hosts are exceptional, however, and I'm going to let you go find those on your own, but I've taken a listen recently, and they're awesome, and I couldn't be prouder of such an international effort. Today's guest on this particular show is Eddie Davenport. He's a clinical social work student, and he's about to graduate and become a real clinician, a real boy. And I met him through Walk the Talk America, which is another organization that I serve on to bring the professions of mental health and firearms ownership together. And Eddie's great because he's a firearms owner and he's also a mental health professional. And we talk about some of the juxtapositions with those, but also his personal overcoming of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is fascinating and encouraging and inspiring, because I think that we want to get the message out that everybody can have their mental health treated and healed, not just, struggled through or managed or, parked to the side while you limp through life in misery. That's not what we're about. We want actual, real, full healing and redemption. And Eddie speaks to that really well. So I was really happy to interview him, and I think you're going to enjoy it. The show is brought to you, as always, by Zephyr Wellness, which is a company I co-own here in Northern Nevada. If you're new to the show, check out zephyrwellness.org. If you're old to the show, you already know this. I also am proud that we are continuing to be sponsored by Audible. If you're not yet on Audible, I highly recommend it. Go to audibletrial.com/nogginnotes to get your free 30-day trial, and do us a favor by kicking us a little benefit. So sign up for your free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/nogginnotes. You get 30 days free, during which time you can download a free audio book or some sort of other audio content. You get to keep that even if you cancel your trial, but you probably won't, because Audible's inventory is just absolutely overwhelming. So check out audibletrial.com/nogginnotes for your free 30-day trial and help us out, help you out, help feed your noggin and educate yourself. And then finally, if you're interested in a free and anonymous mental health screening, go to wtta.org/love, or just go to wtta.org. You'll be able to click through the site and find your free and anonymous mental health screening. Walk the Talk America is WTTA, and that's the aforementioned organization. So if you're interested, go check in on yourself. It's really cool, and it's confidential. Without further delay, here's my interview with Eddie Davenport. Enjoy. Hello, Noggin Notes listening audience. Thank you for joining us again. Today with me is Eddie Davenport, clinical social work, soon to be graduated grad student. Hello, Eddie.
How's it going?
Well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Surviving Inauguration Day.
It is Inauguration Day. Happy Inauguration Day.
Hey.
All the disasters they said would befall us did not, and we're happy for that. So you are a clinical social work student in North Carolina, and we met through Walk the Talk America, and I was really taken by your story, so much so that I wanted you to be on this podcast. And if the listening audience is just finding out for the first time what this is, I host two podcasts, which is strange, and I think I'm the only one I know who does that. But one's called Guns and Mental Health, and we do it through Walk the Talk America, and the other is this one, Noggin Notes. And because there's significant crossover with what we do as professionals, I thought it would be instructive to the listening audience to have Eddie kind of tell his story, because it's a pretty cool one. It has to do with PTSD and overcoming it, which is always inspirational, but also unlocks some of the myths I think that we think about what that means and so forth. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you're doing and all that stuff. And then we'll get into the actual conversation.
Okay. Well, like I said, my name is Eddie Davenport. I am a proud social worker out of North Carolina, soon to be a licensed clinical social worker with hopefully in May. My focus is going to get my LCSW and then my LCAS. I'm looking to work with populations with kids with trauma is what I really dove into. At this point, going through the different clinical stuff and everything, family working with families is really what it is, because it's more of just a single person inside a family. It's a whole family system. And then, of course, working with substance abuse issues, because it's what came first, the mental health issue or the substance abuse issue, trying to self-medicate. And it's just, my school allowed me to get dual licensed, and who's going to turn that down when you're already going to school?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry.
And like I said, as far as a background with the PTSD stuff, I'll definitely dive into my story, but my background is in fire EMS, mostly the EMS side in the last part of my career, but I started strictly fire.
So you're going to graduate. That's really exciting. And you talk about this dual licensure. I heard some letters in there, and we try to define acronyms and lingo for our audience. So LCSW, Licensed Clinical Social Worker, right? And then what you said, CAS or something?
Licensed Clinical Addiction Specialist.
There we go. And it's different in every state. So if you're listening in some state and you're like, well, we don't have that where I live, you probably do. It's just called something else. So in Nevada, for example, it's we call them CADC, Certified Alcohol and Drug Counselor, or LADC, Licensed Alcohol and Drug Counselor. And the difference between those two is a graduate degree. But the point is, in every state, and usually across the world, there's substance abuse professionals who are credentialed by some governing body. And so yours is called, what is it again? CAS.
Ours is the North Carolina, I should really know this.
I meant the acronym. I'm sorry.
The Licensed Clinical Addiction Specialist.
Addiction Specialist. Okay. So that's cool. So you're going to, you want to work with families. You want to work with children. I think that's really noble. Not everybody has the chops to work with children. My age limit is about 12. I tried not to go any lower than that because I've done it. It's fun, but that's not my bailiwick. And I realized through practice, trial and error that I should go where I'm best and leave where other people are best at to them, and that happens to be pediatrics. So good on you, because almost nobody wants to do pediatrics.
I'm not gonna lie, the more I've worked with them, the more I might be leaning that way, but for now I'm still gonna dive head into it.
Good for you. So let's talk about your journey. We mentioned very very briefly the this makes for good radio, doesn't it, when the host is coughing into the mic, choking on his own spit? Jeez. We mentioned your PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a diagnosis that we render, and some people have an emerging concept now that it's not a disorder, but it's an actual brain injury, and we can talk a little bit about that. But I'm really interested in your experience with this, because you mentioned your EMS, emergency medical services, and you worked with a lot of first response stuff, and really it kind of came from there. But take us through the background here and the history.
Sure. So I started originally as right out of high school. I knew I wanted to do something in my life, and originally it was trying to go into the military. And Jake can see me, but you guys can't. I'm a bigger guy, and I've always been a big guy. And trying to make the weight cut limits when the military was shutting down basically everyone going in was really hard, because I didn't really have the grades. And I was in shape in the sense that I played football all my life, I couldn't make the BMI test. So I needed to do something. So that something ended up, working at a job in a hospital. It wasn't really going anywhere. And an uncle of mine was a captain in the Norfolk City Fire Department. And so he told me that if I want to try to get up with something like this, the best way to do is to start volunteering with local fire departments. And a lot of them, offer a lot of training and stuff. And like, once your foot's in the door, paid professional departments will pick you up. And it's very true. That is how that story happened. So I did that. And while working the fire department, they offered to pay they offered to pay for my schooling to get my EMT license.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just turned into a full career, because once I was able to get a job EMS, I thought I found my calling, which I'm not going to lie, it was my calling for a while. But in that environment, you see a lot of trauma. It's the nature of the beast. No one calls 911 for a stubbed toe. At least you hope they don't. But yeah, you see a lot of trauma, and you see a lot of just bad stuff all the time. And I didn't deal with it well. And a lot of people didn't deal with it well. And that's, unfortunately, that is part of the nature of first responders, because we live in an environment where we are the heroes, and well, we're told we are the heroes, and like we run to the burning buildings, we go save people. We have people shooting at us, depending on which side of profession you're in. Are you like, your job is to save someone, but then who saves yourself? Because if you ask for help, it makes you seem weak, and that can get you fired in some places, or just never promoted up the ranks.
Yeah, that's a huge barrier to care access. And part of what you and I now are trying to work on with this Walk the Talk America stuff is bridging the gap between firearms owners and getting mental health care, because a lot of firearms owners are taking their own lives with their guns because they have this perception that if they go get care, they're going to have their firearms taken from them by the big bad government or whatever, because they're deemed to be mentally unfit, or, pick your, story or your narrative. But this doesn't just afflict gun owners, it afflicts professionals. And as you just outlined, there's a significant heavy culture wherein you're not allowed to ask for help as a caregiver, as a help giver, in fire and EMS and police, and it even trickles out into emergency medicine, physicians, even attorneys and laborers, and all sorts of professions where it's just not cool to ask for help. And like you say, you're determined to be weak or whatever, and weak equals bad, and we don't want bad weak people around us, so we'll just fire them or whatever, and it's really bad. So hopefully having more conversations like this will allow people to relax those belief systems that are so rigid that it's preventing, at bare minimum, ongoing misery, and at maximum, some people take their own lives because they can't tolerate the distress anymore, and that's not okay. We need to invite people in to get help and realize, they're not going to be judged for it, and if they are, well, then we go educate the people who are doing the judging so that they stop that too. So, talk to us about how you actually turned the corner there and made the decision, and then what led up to your trauma in the first place.
Yeah. So my full story you can actually hear on one of the WTTA podcasts, and that it's worth listening to if you want the full story. But I'll give you kind of like the highlight notes of it.
You're doing a good job. Your agent has contacted you and put you in touch with many people to do the podcast circuit now. So I'm sure Fallon will be calling next, and probably one of the other late night people. You're writing a book too, right? You're going to do a book tour soon. I'm totally making this up.
First in the book, then the movie deal.
Yeah, book deal, then the movie deal, and more late night talk show.
So anyways, how it really started was as I was going through the stuff. Like I said, I didn't deal with it well. Luckily, I never turned to some of the more negative outcomes you can do. While there was alcohol involved, I never got to the point where I was addicted to alcohol or abused drugs or anything like that. But I definitely did negative things in other fashions. I was dating a girl, which in hindsight, the relationship wasn't the best to begin with, but the whole relationship just turned toxic during that whole time period. She was involved in as a first responder herself, and we just took our stuff out on each other all the time. I worked as a part-time as actually a cook at a local restaurant in one of the places, one of the cities I worked in, just as extra income. And so I was never getting sleep just because I needed money, because while first respond, working EMS, they say it's a noble profession, which is true. You make $11, $12 an hour. So it's hard to make a living in a city where the jobs are making $11, $12 an hour.
Yeah.
I killed myself with no sleep, and then I eventually just spiraled out where I couldn't take it no more, and I had to get out of there. And fast forward, actually, out of working first response, I met my now wife, and I'm to this day, I'm so surprised she put up with me for so long. I admitted that I was
my wife is also surprised that she's put up with me for this long.
But I admitted in the other one that I was probably a horrible boyfriend during those time periods, because part of PTSD isn't always, everyone has different sides they see. Some people, it's everyone hears about, the veteran who snapped and killed someone. Well, that's not that can happen, but that's not always the case. A lot of what you see is, you have people who have nightmares. That we hear a lot about those, or you have people who they're always jumpy, and then they take out all that aggression on one person. I took all my